Hi everyone, welcome back to the channel. Tonight we're covering a serious topic. This was suggested to me by a subscriber under the handle of Strawberry Lemonade, some type of variant of that. Took me a minute to get to, but I had some other stuff I had to deal with first, so here we are. We're in front of our fake fire. We're doing it. This is pedophiles using dogs to lure children, okay? I'm also going to throw in an article, and I need to go ahead and pull that up in a second, about some Disney employees that were busted. And I feel that, and in fact I don't really need the article for that, but it's obvious that the two are related, because you know, they use cartoon characters and dogs and different things like that to appeal to children and pull them in. And it's not an unknown fact, it's not unknown that these people use this industry to drag children in with the promises of being cartoonists, or to meet some of these people and to lure kids. But the topic of tonight's video is pedophiles using dogs to lure in children. And also we will touch on the fact that anytime you say something about dogs hurting children, dog lovers love to immediately deflect and say stuff like, why aren't you worried about pedophiles? Why aren't you talking about that? That's a serious issue. Well, yeah, but you know, that's funny you bring that up, because pedophiles use dogs to lure children in, and they get really upset when you say that. So let's pull up a couple of these articles, and I'm going to read the first one. And I did a bunch of searching, and people were being very vague about it. They don't really want to talk about it. You'll see it mentioned in an article or two, like the pedophile used the dog to lure the child in. We all know this old song and dance that's been going on for the longest time. Now everybody's focused on social media and different apps and things like Pokemon Go that these people use to attract and lure in children. Obviously that's terrible, but you know, we're talking about the age-old tactic of the puppy in the van, if you will. When they're like, I've got a puppy in my van that I need help with, can you help me? Oh, you can pet him and all this, and they like to use candy and all these other things. There's an article from the world stock market, okay, and they were one of the only people to cover this, with an actual article that covered like the whole thing. I had a couple other search engines I wanted to use to try, and some different tactics, because we all know these days with the internet, just the way you type something in makes the difference between, it's night and day on what you're actually going to get when you look. So this is how a pedophile used his dog to approach and abuse little girls. Okay? Her police of New York has finally managed to identify the man who reportedly, as a pedophile, used the dog as bait to lure underage girls into Brooklyn. And this article is from June 1st, 2021, so relatively recent article. Brandon Rodriguez, of 25 years old, is wanted for at least 3 horrific incidences last week, including one where he sexually harassed a 13-year-old girl. How a pedophile uses his dog to approach little girls. Rodriguez approached the schoolgirl on the morning of May 24th and asked her to take a picture of him with his dog. The perverted man then dragged her to the entrance of a building, where he touched her in an inappropriate way, according to the police. Now he was using his dog differently, putting him at the entrance of the building to terrify the girl. So first he used the dog to lure her in, right? And then he used the dog to terrify. It's so funny how that works, you know, where on one hand people are enthralled with dogs, especially children, and on the other hand it just takes a switch to make them terrified and realize that they are in danger and something bad can happen to them. In the same way, he approached 2 more victims the next day, asking a 12-year-old girl to take a picture of him next to his dog. However, when he tried to drag her to the entrance of an apartment building, the little one managed to escape. An hour later, Rodriguez struck again, doing the same to an 11-year-old girl. They are continuing to search for him, so they still haven't found, apparently, and I'm looking for an update. Nothing, and no comments. You know, they're still using the little girl, or still looking for this man, and still can't find him. Now, in this article over here, this is by some kind of writer named Baby Gaga. And they list off 15 traps that sickos use to lure children, okay? And I've been going through each one to see, how much they're going to mention about dogs. And they got to, where they use cartoons, all right? And there are a lot of cartoons with a lot of strange hidden messages. And for those who don't know or have never read into it, Hollywood is not beneath using these kind of tactics. Nickelodeon producers and people involved with that show have also been found guilty. And one of the men even, luring the girl in to be a cartoonist. And then one of the ways he was grooming her was to show her explicit cartoons he had drawn of women and dogs. Not together at the same time that I read about, but dogs with like raging erections and people touching them and stuff like that. I have looked all over for that article that I read like not even a month ago and can't find it. I can find a few videos on YouTube that they'll talk about these very same people, but they don't go into detail about how and why, how he did it, right? So it's definitely something they're constantly covering over. And when you think about the people that are involved, I mean, it's pretty obvious how and why that happens. There's a lot of money involved and a lot of heavy influence from Hollywood directors and the different cartoonists, and they're like their own little gang. They kind of protect one another. So I'm looking for the time-tested lure. Okay, so on a list of 15, this one's down at 3, which is kind of funny. It's been used for so long. They have, let's see, and telling children not to talk to strangers. He asks permission to approach the children to see what they'll do. There's a guy in the show that is like testing it out, but children will walk away with him more often than not. And when there's a cute little dog involved, children and kids are eager to pet the dog, instantly forgetting everything their parents have taught them about stranger danger and to stay away from these adults, that shouldn't even be talking to these children. They constantly will use pictures of dogs on social media, so I love how they kind of just brush over this all the time and don't want to talk about it, but they'll use a picture of a dog to lure the child into conversation. And they'll do the same thing they used to do on the streets, except now they'll use social media to do it, where they'll show a picture of the dog online. And once again, I've read an article where they used a husky to do this because for some reason, with the blue eyes and the color contrast, it really appeals to humans and they get way into huskies. I think they're repulsive and terrible, but I think all dogs are repulsive and terrible, so I don't think I really count. And then once they have the child lured in like that, then they'll say something like, oh, he really could use someone to walk him or someone to help me, with the dog. Can I come and pick you up, or where do you go to school? And they use those things to drag the children in. Okay, so let me go back to my original search. I think this was it. And yeah, the pet lure. There it is. Ah, damn it. Or they will, children love animals, so they'll be oh yes, of course, the lost puppy. I need to find my dog. So, the dog doesn't even exist. They just use that, and it works on children. And they, unfortunately, fall for it. Now, off of that topic, and since so much of this has been repressed, then we're just going to go into actually talking about the deflection, okay? Where, if I say something about dogs harming children, okay, then immediately I'm getting the whole rhetoric from people like, why don't you focus your time on pedophiles? Well, these kind of things go hand in hand. Some of you may have seen the meme that I used with the hand of the dog with the pedophiles and children. It's insinuating like, yeah, they use these things to lure in children and to steal them, I love how often, it's really weird in the society we live in now, where they're even trying to make pedophilia like a part of sexuality and that it's normal. And then they've even broken it down and gone like, oh, well, not all pedophiles want to hurt children. Some of them are just attracted to them. My goodness, guys, we all know this is wrong. We're not talking about a guy in his 20s dating a 17-year-old girl. Although, these are still, they're still young and immature in their minds, so they're not old enough to understand that when a 30, 40-year-old guy, let's get a little more dramatic, is trying to date them at that age, that it's unusual. I will even say from my own personal experience that when I was 21, 22 years old, I was dating a famous man, obviously not going to name drop him, as we are still acquaintances, but it's weird to say because I was only 21. I'm not a child, I'm old enough to drink, but I'm still immature, right? And I was dating a man that was in his early 40s, and I remember when he offered to get me a bank card. I was raised by a bunch of degenerates, and I had no idea how to deal with checkbooks or take care of things. I had paid bills and worked because I had emancipated one of my sisters and raised them, and ended up with a few other of my sisters, just not legally. So I knew about paying bills and everything, but a lot of this stuff was really foreign to me, and I was obviously a prime victim, a good choice as to someone for an older man to. Now, I don't consider what he did was wrong, but yeah, I kind of do. So you hear me out. I remember he got me a bank card and asked if I wanted, because they'll put pictures and stuff on it. And when I was younger, I was obsessed with that damn movie. When I was a kid, with that 101 Dalmatians movie. And he got me a bank card with 101 Dalmatians on it. And I remember reaching my mid-30s and looking back and thinking, ew, I was still kind of a child, and he was a full-grown man, and it was a weird relationship anyways. I won't go into the details on that because it's just odd. I think even he knew it was weird because, we won't go into it, but I came from a damaged childhood, and those children are perfect to prey on because we lack security and confidence. We don't have parents that we talk to say why are you dating such an old man? Don't you think you could find a guy your own age? Or to catch on to any of the red flags that were taking place. Now, let's get a little darker here. I, myself, am a victim of molestation as a child. I have been lured by predators. One of them actually low-key kind of used a dog to kind of hone in. He convinced my mother, whom was hardly around anyways, and would readily leave us with people she shouldn't have been for an array of reasons. Some of them even trading pharmaceutical drugs and different things to her, and they would trade them back and forth, and she would leave my sister and I with these people. Things got so terrible that I had an older brother, and he ran away and left us there. And for the longest time, I couldn't forgive him, right? But then looking back later was more well, I don't blame him. Sometimes he was, 14 years old and had all these things happening to him in a sexual manner, and not only that, but physical abuse. So at the end of the day, I don't really blame him for running away. I was hurt when I was young because we needed him, and he was the only protection we had. But how many ass whoopings and finger bangings could he take? I'm probably going to get in trouble for saying that. Before he did run away, and now as an adult, he's heavily traumatized. He's in his 40s. He can't get his life together. He can't relax. And the one man, and he was dating my mother. Like I said, I didn't have a great childhood, but it made me stronger today. I just had to heal. I had to get over all of that. And now I can talk about these things, and it doesn't affect me the way it did when, say, I was 19, 22, 24. And you think back to me telling, and actually, admittedly, I ended up dating a few older guys when I was younger. And I cannot lie and say that this didn't have a direct correlation. I got groomed over life. But the one man who was dating my mother, and she wouldn't let me have a dog because it's a responsibility and costs money, and she didn't have time for that kind of shit, kept convincing her, and he kept telling me, if I help you get this dog, then you have to help me. And being a child, I was naive. I thought he meant cleaning the house, or they were always having us detail his car. And then once I was an adult, I have to look back and remember, like, man, he would bring his dog over to get us to come outside, and he's always convincing us to help him, like, clean his vehicles. And this is two of my mom's boyfriends who did this. Almost same story. It's so... And when I told her about it, she got angry at me. She got angry at me and my sisters, and it was almost like she was jealous. I remember her being angry as I matured into a young woman for my body and making me feel bad, and even saying out loud that I was more appealing than her and that she was old now, and that was, she just was constantly attacking me, because I made her feel insecure. She took no mind as to what she was doing to us. So, you know, these things are very real problems, and you can not even realize as a child that it's happening until you're much older and it's much too late. So let's go on into the deflecting. I experienced that myself with, like I said, my mother, and I experience this with people every day when I bring up things about dogs, and it's, oh, you need to focus on other things. There are children being trafficked. There are pedophiles out there. Yes, but deflecting is not going to change that. And let's be completely honest, guys. Pedophilia and child abduction and molestation and child trafficking is being talked about. You don't get jumped on by people, except for dog nuts, for bringing something like that up. I don't expect for you guys to hop my shit because I just shared my story. I understand it's not completely dog related, but in a sense it was. But they do if you bring up dogs. If I bring up, you know, children being attacked by dogs, then suddenly I'm like public enemy number one. And fuck Ashley, right? But, you know, people can talk about this kind of stuff, and usually you are met with positivity and compassion and understanding from your fellow man when you say, oh, I was molested, I was trafficked, my mother was trading my sister for Xanax, you know, until she ended up in the foster care system, and I had to go find her, and then not only that, try to change her way of thinking and all the trauma that's happened over through our lives. It's crazy. And but, you know, not dog hating, don't talk about that, because then suddenly you're vilified and you're a bad person. That's tremendously sad, and people need to understand that these things go hand in hand, and deflecting from one situation to another is not fixing anything. It's time to open up and have a real dialogue about these types of things, because as I said, they do go hand in hand. I remember having the dogs used against me in every, maybe it bothers me more than I realize. Sorry, at least there's some humor in this video. I remember having them used against me in multiple ways. It's, you know, do your homework, do this nasty thing. I'm not even going to go into detail. That's not something people are here to hear. We're talking about dogs. But the two go hand in hand, and to try to convolute one with the other is ridiculous. They're both serious topics. It doesn't mean that if I bring up dogs, we need to deflect and immediately start talking about pedophiles, okay? It's a terrible thing. It needs to be addressed. I understand that. But, you know, this whole deflecting is not helping. So there's another article about Brandon Rodriguez. And let's see. And this is from the 21st. And he's a child predator. He's still wanted by the authorities. They have him on camera with the dog in it, and ironically, it's a husky, as I mentioned earlier. Let's see. Yeah, it's totally a husky or a Malamute, which look extremely similar. One of the only differences between them is the bone structure and size. The coloration is quite similar. Yeah, still haven't caught the guy, apparently. They do have, NYPD Crime Stoppers has a post up about it, a reward of up to $3,500. And this article is from Newsweek because they keep throwing me ads. He'd been wandering the perimeter of the school during drop-off and pickup times with his dogs, one of which was a black and white husky. We understand it's a scary situation for the school and the community. But they can't locate the guy. Still, let me tell you, you know, they can find you for school loans, you know, but they can't find this guy that's literally in a city that is just riddled with cameras. So, you know, you tell me. So yeah, guys, changing the subject the way people do is not helpful. And my common answer to people when they say, oh, you should be pursuing pedophiles, well, the two go hand in hand. They constantly use dogs, you know. Let's try this, actually. I've been wanting to do this. Sorry, I know I'm off camera for a minute. You might have to see my arm boob fat, but whatever. You guys will live. Don't listen to me, you guys. I'm a dork. You guys know that. Okay, so let's get out of this. I'm really crappy with the computer, like I said, so you guys don't read into it. And we will go with using dogs for children. I was thinking about this last night. So since this is such a new story, they just continuously are going back to this story over and over again. Oh. Wait a minute. This might be an update. This was published June 2nd. New York City men arrested in incidents of trying to lure. Good. They have arrested 2 men accused in separate shut up. Thank you. Accused in separate incidents of trying to lure young children using candy or a dog, and in one case, inappropriately touching one of them. He was arrested Tuesday, which was, as I said, I believe the 2nd of June. And according to the New York Police Department, he touched the 2 girls. Here's back to the article showing. And he had allegedly prevented her from leaving by taking his backpack and placing his dog by the doorway of the building. He fled when the girl's friend called out to her. Then he did it again, and 3rd time. Okay, I don't want to repeat myself. He was charged with 3 counts of acting in a manner injurious to a child and 1 count of unlawful imprisonment. Police are still investigating whether Rodriguez was involved in any other incidents. In a separate incident, this one reported to have happened on Saturday, a different man tried luring 2 other children, ages 5 and 7, into his car. He asked them if they wanted candy, and they have another reward out for him. And this is both in the same area. He's 77 years old. And, yeah, fortunately, the father was paying attention and came out and scared the guy off. So, serious stuff here, guys. And I'm sorry if the stories about my childhood made anybody uncomfortable, but once again, just like talking about dog stuff here, it's important to feel uncomfortable. It's important for people to understand how serious these matters are. So, thank you to everyone that watches. Not so much humor in this video, but it's not really something to be laughing about like it is knowing that people get scabies from their dogs. But here we are, right? So, from the bottom of my dog-hating heart, I appreciate every one of you. Fuck Fluffy. And fuck pedophiles, right? And so next time someone tries to deflect you speaking about dogs, quickly remind them that these things are also used to lure in children, okay? And I've got some great video topics coming up I'm excited to talk about, and they'll be far more humorous. I'll probably put a warning on this video so that, you know, people that have dealt with the same thing as me that aren't ready to hear about it or talk about it know not to watch this video. So, much love, guys. Peace until then. Take care of yourselves. Protect your children. Get your steel toe boots. Fuck Fluffy. And all that other good stuff. Thank you, guys. I appreciate you so much. And have a great night.